When I first stumbled across this old gardening method, I didn't expect much. It seemed too simple, almost forgotten among all the modern fertilizers and bottled soil boosters. But after using it in my own garden, I watched my plants thrive with a steady supply of nutrients for an entire season without any extra feeding. The trick? Using tree mulch in a very specific way that unlocks hidden fertility and transforms the soil into a living, breathing ecosystem. What surprised me most was not just the growth it produced, but how long the effect lasted. Mulch is often thought of as just a covering to keep weeds down and soil moist. But when you use tree-based mulch correctly, it becomes a slow-release fertilizer that feeds your soil from within. Trees store an incredible amount of minerals in their bark, leaves and twigs. When chipped and spread as mulch, these nutrients don't vanish overnight like chemical fertilizers. Instead, they break down gradually through microbial action, earthworm activity and natural fungal processes. This steady decomposition creates a natural feeding cycle. While synthetic fertilizers deliver a short-lived nutrient spike, tree mulch provides a gentle but consistent stream of minerals that plants can draw on for weeks and months. This is why I call it a forgotten trick, because too many gardeners underestimate its true power, treating mulch only as a surface layer instead of the soil food factory it can be. Not every tree makes the best mulch. Some species release compounds that slow plant growth, while others decompose too slowly to be useful in one season. The best choices are hardwood mulches from trees like oak, maple or fruit trees, as they balance slow breakdown with a rich mineral profile. Avoid mulches made from black walnut or eucalyptus, since they contain chemicals that can suppress growth. You know, the magic really happens when you use fresh, shredded tree mulch that still contains a good mix of wood, bark and leaves. This combination, well, it mimics the forest floor, where all that decaying organic matter is constantly enriching the soil. A mulch made only of bark, or that's overly processed like just chips, won't have quite the same effect. To activate this trick, you need to apply mulch in a way that encourages microbial and fungal growth, rather than just smothering the soil. The ideal layer is about 2 to 3 inches thick, spread evenly around the base of your plants, but not actually touching their stems. Keeping a slight gap helps prevent rot and, allows for air circulation. For vegetable beds, I usually spread mulch after the seedlings are well established, typically when they have their second set of true leaves. For fruit trees or perennials, mulch can be applied almost any time, although honestly, spring and early summer work best because soil organisms are most active then. So, the real difference comes when you combine tree mulch with a simple activation formula that, well, wakes up the soil life and speeds up decomposition. Without this, mulch may honestly take too long to break down, but with it, the mulch turns into a nutrient powerhouse in just a matter of weeks. Now, this is where the forgotten trick really becomes a game changer. Mulch by itself decomposes slowly, but by adding a microbial starter, you can kickstart the whole process. Here's the exact formula I use to activate my tree mulch. 1 litre of effective microorganism solution, often called EM or lactic acid bacteria starter, 100 grams of unrefined sugar or molasses, and 10 litres of clean water. You'll want to mix these together thoroughly until the sugar dissolves. Then just lightly water this solution over the mulch layer right after applying it. What happens next is, well, pretty remarkable. The microbes in the solution multiply quickly, feeding on the sugar, and then moving into the mulch, where they begin breaking down the wood fibres. This creates a living mulch layer that steadily releases nutrients to the soil below. I repeated this activation process just once at the beginning of the season. After that, the mulch maintained its own cycle of breakdown, teeming with fungi, bacteria and earthworms. By mid-season, When other gardeners were reapplying fertilizers, my soil was still rich and my plants thriving. Wood-based mulch is primarily carbon-rich. On its own, soil microbes would need to pull nitrogen from the soil to break it down, which can sometimes create temporary nitrogen shortages. But when you activate the mulch with a microbial solution and sugar, you provide the energy and biological diversity needed to balance decomposition. The microbes don't rob the soil of nutrients, they transform the mulch itself into a nutrient source. As the mulch decomposes, it releases calcium, potassium, magnesium and trace minerals stored in the tree's tissues. These nutrients leach slowly into the soil, exactly in line with plant growth needs. The fungal networks that form in decomposing mulch also act like highways, transporting nutrients directly to plant roots. The first thing I noticed was how moist the soil stayed, even in hot weather. Mulch acts like a sponge, reducing evaporation and keeping root zones cool. Within about a month, the plants had a noticeable deep green colour, which is a sure sign of steady nutrient availability. By mid-season, vegetables like tomatoes, peppers and leafy greens were noticeably larger compared to my control bed without activated mulch. Fruit trees held their blossoms longer and set more fruit, while the soil itself became crumbly, dark and alive with earthworms. The most satisfying part was that I didn't need to add any extra fertilizer for the rest of the season. The activated tree mulch provided everything my crops required, proving that the method works as a self-sustaining soil-feeding system. Even after harvest, the soil remained improved. When I pulled out spent plants, their roots were surrounded by fungal threads and fine organic matter from the decomposed mulch. This is the foundation of lasting soil health. Unlike chemical inputs that fade away, tree mulch builds organic matter and improves soil structure year after year. The following season, I noticed that my beds started off richer without needing as much compost or amendment as before. Once you establish this cycle, your soil becomes less dependent on constant external inputs. While the trick is simple, a few mistakes can limit its success. Don't pile mulch too thick, as it can suffocate roots and slow decomposition. Never let mulch touch the stems or trunks of plants, since this encourages rot. Also, resist the temptation to use raw sawdust or very fine wood shavings. These decompose unevenly and can cause nitrogen lockup if not properly activated. Finally, don't skip the activation step. Unactivated mulch will still eventually break down, but it may take much longer, and you'll miss out on the season-long feeding effect that makes this method so powerful. Modern gardening often leans heavily on packaged fertilizers and quick fixes, but these come at the cost of soil life and long-term fertility. By rediscovering methods like this mulch activation trick, we not only save money but also restore the natural balance of our gardens. Healthy soil doesn't come from a bag, it comes from fostering the biological cycles that have always existed in nature. Tree mulch, when activated and applied properly, is one of the simplest and most effective ways to build that balance. It is renewable, often free from local tree trimmers, and capable of turning even tired soil into a fertile bed. After a full season of using this forgotten tree mulch trick, I can confidently say it has changed the way I garden. My soil is healthier, my plants are stronger, and my workload is lighter because I don't need constant fertilizing. It is a method that combines simplicity with science, using natural processes to feed plants steadily and sustainably. If you've been searching for a way to cut down on fertilizer use, save money, and still grow thriving crops, I encourage you to try this yourself. It may look like just a layer of wood chips at first, but once activated, it becomes a hidden engine of fertility that can power your garden all season long. And here's the best part. It works whether you're growing vegetables, fruit trees, or ornamentals. The soil doesn't care what you're planting, it only cares that it is alive and fed. So give this method a try in your garden and watch how a forgotten trick from nature can outperform even the best modern products. If you found this guide useful, don't forget to subscribe to Growth Hub Central Crops and share this video with fellow gardeners. Let's keep these timeless methods alive and thriving for the next generation of growers.